When Seoul's most guarded surgeon saves a dying Nigerian student from the snow, he never expects her to refuse his charity or to dismantle every wall he's spent a lifetime building. What begins as a cold transaction to repay an impossible debt becomes something far more dangerous, a love that will force him to choose between the gilded life his family built for him and the one thing money can't buy. In a city where bloodlines matter more than hearts, two people from different worlds must decide if love is worth losing everything. The blood on Dr. Kang Joon-wook's surgical gloves had long since dried when he finally stepped out of his private clinic into the biting Seoul winter. 2 a.m. 16 hours since he'd arrived that morning, and his body moved on autopilot through the empty streets of Itaewon. Snow fell in thick, relentless sheets, muffling the city's usual chaos into an eerie silence. He preferred it this way. Quiet. Controlled. Predictable. Love was none of those things, which was exactly why he'd sworn it off years ago. He was halfway to his car when he saw her, a dark form crumpled against the alley wall like discarded trash. Most people would have kept walking. Seoul had plenty of drunk foreigners stumbling through Itaewon's nightlife district. But Joon-wook had spent too many years training his eyes to spot the difference between intoxication and medical emergency, and something about the way her body lay motionless, snow already accumulating on her shoulders, made him stop. "Hey," he called out in English, approaching cautiously. No response. He knelt beside her, his expensive wool coat dragging through the slush, and pressed 2 fingers against her neck. Her pulse was there but weak, her lips tinged blue, her breathing shallow. Hypothermia. Advanced stage. "Damn it," he muttered, already calculating. His clinic was 3 minutes away. An ambulance would take 15 in this weather. The choice was obvious, even if it was inconvenient. He lifted her easily. She was lighter than she should be, all sharp angles and hollow spaces where flesh should have been. Malnutrition on top of hypothermia. As he carried her back toward his clinic, her face turned slightly toward his chest, and he noticed properly for the first time that she was African, probably in her mid-20s, with delicate features that would have been beautiful if they weren't slack with unconsciousness. Inside the clinic, he worked with the mechanical precision that had made him one of Seoul's most sought-after physicians. Heated blankets. For fluids. Warming protocols. He monitored her vitals with the same detached efficiency he applied to all his patients. She was a problem to solve, nothing more. By 4 a.m., her temperature had stabilized, her breathing evened out, and color had begun returning to her cheeks. He sat back in his chair and studied her properly now. She wore clothes that had seen better days, a thin jacket wholly inadequate for Korean winter, and shoes with soles worn nearly through. Her hands, resting on top of the blankets, were chapped and raw. A student ID badge hung from her jacket, partially visible. He leaned forward to read it. Adanna Okafor. Seoul National University, Economics Department. Joon-wook pulled up his clinic's billing system and began itemizing. Emergency treatment for fluids, warming equipment usage, facility fee for after-hours care. The total came to 8.5 million won. He printed the invoice and placed it on the table beside her bed. Then he poured himself coffee and waited. She woke an hour later with a gasp, bolting upright before her body remembered its trauma and forced her back down with a groan. "Don't move too quickly," Joon-wook said from his position by the window, his voice flat. "You were in advanced hypothermia. You're lucky I found you." Adanna's eyes, wide and disoriented, finally focused on him. "Where am I?" "My clinic. I'm Dr. Kang Joon-wook." He moved to her bedside, all business. "How long were you in the cold?" "I don't know. I was walking home from my job. I remember feeling dizzy." Her accent was distinctly West African, her English crisp despite her confusion. "What time is it?" 5:30 a.m. He picked up the invoice and held it out to her. "This is what you owe for treatment." Adanna took the paper with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the numbers. He watched her face carefully, noting the exact moment comprehension hit. Her jaw tightened, her breathing quickened slightly, but she didn't cry. Instead, she looked up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. 8.5 million won, she said quietly. That's about 7,000 US dollars. Roughly, yes. I don't have this kind of money. Then you shouldn't have gotten sick. The words came out harsher than he intended, but Joon-wook had learned long ago that sympathy only complicated things. Medicine was a transaction. He provided a service, patients paid. Emotions made everything messy. Adanna stared at him for a long moment, and he found himself unable to look away from her eyes. There was something in them, a core of steel wrapped in exhaustion, that reminded him uncomfortably of the person he used to be before he'd learned to bury everything soft under layers of professional distance. I lost my scholarship 3 months ago, she said finally, her voice steady despite everything. I've been working 3 jobs trying to stay in Korea long enough to finish my degree. I send money home to my mother in Enugu. She's sick. I have exactly 43,000 won in my bank account. She paused, then met his gaze directly. But I'm not asking you to forgive the debt. That surprised him. No. Adanna pushed herself up to sitting, moving carefully, and swung her legs over the side of the bed. Let me work it off. Joon-wook almost laughed. Work it off? What could you possibly do for me? I speak 4 languages fluently. Igbo, English, Korean, and Mandarin. I can translate, file, clean, organize. I'm good with people. I don't complain. Her chin lifted slightly. And I have everything to lose, Dr. Kang, which means I won't disappoint you. Something shifted in Joon-wook's chest, an unfamiliar sensation he quickly suppressed. He studied her for a long moment, this woman who should have been begging or crying, but instead sat before him with her spine straight and her eyes clear, negotiating like she had any leverage at all. It was either impressively brave or remarkably stupid, and he found himself curious which. 6 months, he said abruptly. You work here every day except Sundays. I'll credit 50,000 won per day against your debt. You'll clean, organize files, translate documents, and handle whatever else I need. You show up late once, miss a day without medical cause, or give me any reason to regret this, and I'll send the debt to collections. Understood? Relief flickered across Adanna's face so quickly he almost missed it. Understood. When do I start? Tomorrow. 6 a.m. He turned away, already regretting his decision. There's a shower down the hall. Clean clothes in the storage closet. I'll have my manager draw up a contract. 3 weeks later, Joon-wook found himself watching Adanna more than he cared to admit. She arrived every morning at 5:45, never 6, and moved through the clinic with quiet efficiency. She'd reorganized his entire filing system without being asked, color-coding and cross-referencing in a way that actually made sense. When wealthy patients came in, some would stare at her with barely concealed disdain, making comments in Korean they assumed she couldn't understand. She understood perfectly. He knew because he'd catch the slight tightening around her eyes, the way her hands would still for just a moment before continuing their work. But she never responded, never complained, just maintained her dignity with a grace that made his wealthy patients look small by comparison. It was a Thursday afternoon when Mrs. Park came in for her regular Botox appointment. She was old money, the kind of woman who wore her wealth like armor and treated anyone in service as invisible. Adanna had just handed her a clipboard when Mrs. Park wrinkled her nose. Why do you have these people working here, Dr. Kang? She said in Korean, not even looking at Adanna. It's unseemly. This is a respectable establishment. Joon-wook felt something hot flash through his chest. He kept his voice professionally neutral. Ms. Okafor is an excellent employee. If that's a problem, Mrs. Park, perhaps you'd be more comfortable at another clinic. Mrs. Park's eyes widened. I've been coming here for 5 years. And you're welcome to continue, provided you treat all my staff with respect. He held her gaze until she looked away first. Now, shall we proceed with your appointment, or would you prefer to find another doctor? She stayed, but the appointment was tense and silent. After she left, Joon-wook found Adanna in the filing room, her back to the door. Her shoulders were shaking slightly. You didn't have to do that, she said without turning around. I don't tolerate disrespect in my clinic. Is that the only reason? Now she did turn, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears that she was clearly fighting. Because it felt like something else. Joon-wook's jaw tightened. This was dangerous territory, the kind of emotional complexity he'd spent years avoiding. Get back to work, Ms. Okafor. You still owe me 7.2 million won. He saw the hurt flash across her face before she masked it, and he hated himself for putting it there. But distance was safer. Distance kept things simple. That night, he stayed late reviewing patient files, though he could have done it at home. Around 9 p.m., he heard a crash from the front office followed by a soft curse. He found Adanna on her hands and knees, picking up medical journals that had fallen from an overstuffed shelf. You're still here, he said. I wanted to finish reorganizing the library. She didn't look up, just kept gathering books. I'll be done soon. Joon-wook knelt and started helping without really deciding to. Their hands reached for the same book simultaneously, and when their fingers touched, Adanna jerked back like she'd been burned. Sorry, she muttered. Why are you really still in Korea? The question came out before he could stop it. You lost your scholarship months ago. You could go home, restart somewhere easier. Adanna sat back on her heels, a heavy medical text cradled in her lap. For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she said quietly, I studied medicine for 3 years at University of Lagos. I was going to be a doctor, like you. But my father died, and there was no money, and my mother got sick, and someone had to support the family. She traced the embossed title of the book with one finger. The scholarship to study economics here was my second chance. Maybe not medicine, but still education, still hope. And if I go home now, there won't be a third chance. So I stay, and I work, and I survive. You studied medicine? Joon-wook stared at her. Why didn't you tell me? You didn't ask. You just wanted someone to clean and file. There was no accusation in her voice, just statement of fact. Besides, those dreams are expensive, Dr. Kang. I can't afford them anymore. Something cracked open in Joon-wook's carefully constructed walls. He thought about his own path to medicine, how easy it had been with his father's money and connections, how he'd never once had to choose between his dreams and survival. He looked at this woman who'd lost everything and still showed up every day with her head high and felt ashamed of his coldness. Tomorrow, he heard himself say, bring your medical textbooks. Whatever you kept. During slow periods, I'll teach you. Adanna's head snapped up, her eyes wide. What? You heard me. I'm not going to waste 3 years of medical training. He stood abruptly, brushing off his pants, uncomfortable something with the fundamental shifted between them. Don't make me regret this afternoon hours, Joon-wook would pull out anatomy charts and quiz Adanna on muscle groups, nerve pathways, surgical procedures. She was brilliant, her knowledge rusty from disuse, but her mind sharp and hungry. She'd challenge his diagnoses, offer alternative treatment approaches, and more than once, she was right. The patient in room 3, Adanna said one afternoon, reviewing a chart. You diagnosed acute gastritis, but his symptoms don't quite fit. The pain location, the timing. What if it's early-stage appendicitis? Joon-wook had already been walking away. He stopped, turned back, and actually looked at the chart again. She was right. The presentation was atypical, but she'd caught what he'd missed in his rush. He ordered an ultrasound immediately. Appendicitis, just beginning. They caught it hours before it would have ruptured. Good catch, he said grudgingly. Adanna's smile was radiant. Does this reduce my debt? Don't push your luck. But he was fighting his own smile, and from the way her eyes crinkled, she knew it. His manager, Ms. Choi, noticed the change before he did. She was a woman in her 60s who'd worked with Joon-wook for a decade and had no patience for his emotional avoidance. "You're teaching her," Ms. Choi said one evening, not quite a question. "She has medical background. It's practical." Ms. Choi's knowing look made him uncomfortable. "And the way you watch her when she's not looking? That's practical too." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Joon-wook," she said, using the familiar form that reminded him she'd known him since he was a resident. "I've never seen you smile at work. Not once in 10 years. You've smiled more in the past month than in the entire time I've known you." He wanted to deny it, but Miss Choi had a way of seeing through his defenses. "It doesn't matter. It can't matter." "Why not?" "You know why." His father's face flashed in his mind, the expectations, the arranged marriage talks that had been happening with increasing frequency. "My world and hers don't mix." "Then maybe you're living in the wrong world." It was a late Friday night, almost midnight, when everything changed. They were working on a complex case together, Adanna reading aloud from a medical journal while Joon-wook took notes. She was perched on the edge of his desk, her shoes kicked off, completely absorbed in the text. The lamplight caught her profile, highlighting the elegant line of her neck, the way her lips moved around the English medical terminology. "The study shows that early intervention with targeted antibiotics reduced mortality rates by 37%, which suggests that current protocol should be revised to include." She stopped mid-sentence, looking up to find him staring at her. "What?" "Nothing." But his voice came out rough, and he couldn't look away. "Dr. Kang." "Joon-wook," he interrupted. "When it's just us, call me Joon-wook." Something flickered in her eyes, uncertain and hopeful and dangerous. "Joon-wook," she repeated softly, testing the name. "Why are you looking at me like that?" He should have lied. Should have made an excuse, rebuilt his walls, and restored the professional distance that kept them both safe. Instead, he stood and moved closer, watching her eyes widen as he approached. "Because I can't stop," he admitted. "I've been trying for weeks, and I can't stop thinking about you, watching for you, finding excuses to keep you here late." His hand lifted almost involuntarily, fingertips barely brushing her cheek. "Tell me to stop, Adanna." She didn't. Instead, she leaned into his touch, her eyes falling closed. "This is a terrible idea. I know. Your family will hate it. Society will judge us. It could ruin everything you've built." "I know that too." His thumb traced her jawline, and he felt her shiver. "I've spent my entire life being careful, being controlled, never letting anyone close, because I watched love destroy my mother when my father's family rejected her. I swore I'd never be that vulnerable." He tilted her face up to meet his gaze. "And then you collapsed in the snow, and you sat in my clinic and negotiated with nothing but your dignity, and you've been dismantling every defense I have without even trying." Adanna's breath hitched. "Joon-wook, I'm nobody. I'm a broke foreign student who cleans your floors. You're Seoul's most eligible bachelor from one of the richest families in Korea. This isn't some romantic drama where love conquers all. This is real life, and in real life, people like me don't end up with people like you. Then we'll rewrite real life." He was so close now he could count her eyelashes, see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. "Tell me you don't feel this too. Tell me I'm imagining the way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention. Tell me to stop, and I will." "I can't," she whispered. "I can't tell you that because it would be a lie." He kissed her then, softly at first, tentative, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Instead, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like falling and flying simultaneously. She tasted like the coffee they'd been sharing and something uniquely her, and Joon-wook felt 10 years of carefully constructed emotional barriers crumble in an instant. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adanna pressed her forehead against his chest. "What happens now?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I've never done this before. Never kissed someone? She pulled back to look at him skeptically. Never let myself feel anything real. His arms tightened around her. Never wanted someone so much it terrified me. They tried to keep it secret. For 2 beautiful, stolen weeks, they existed in a bubble where the outside world didn't matter. Late nights at the clinic became something more than work. Joon-wook would bring dinner from the restaurant Adanna loved, but could never afford, and they'd eat together in his office, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in Enugu, her father's laugh, her mother's strength, the siblings she supported from across the world. He told her about his mother's death when he was 12, how his father had remarried within a year to a woman approved by the family, how he'd learned that love was a liability in a world that valued power and propriety above all else. "Your father loved your mother, though," Adanna said one night, curled against his side on the office couch. "You said she died of cancer. That's not love destroying anything. That's just life being cruel. He loved her, and it broke him when she died. He became someone else. Cold. Focused only on business and family reputation." Joon-wook's fingers traced absent patterns on her shoulder. "I watched him suffer for loving someone outside his social circle, someone his family never fully accepted. I promised myself I'd never be that weak. And now? Now I'm terrified," he admitted quietly. "Because if loving you is weakness, I don't want to be strong anymore." But secrets don't stay buried in Seoul, especially not in the tight-knit world of private medical practice. It was Ms. Choi who accidentally shattered their illusion of privacy. She'd mentioned to another staff member that Dr. Kang seemed happier lately, probably because of that hard-working girl from Nigeria. The staff member told a patient. The patient told her social circle. And within 48 hours, the rumor reached Joon-wook's father. Kang Dae-sung arrived at the clinic on a Tuesday morning like a winter storm made flesh. He was a tall man in his 60s, impeccably dressed, carrying the kind of authority that came from 3 generations of pharmaceutical wealth and political connections. Adanna was at the front desk when he walked in. "Where is my son?" he demanded in Korean, not even acknowledging her presence. "Dr. Kang is with a patient," Adanna replied in flawless Korean. "Would you like to wait?" Dae-sung's eyes finally focused on her, really seeing her for the first time. His expression could have frozen fire. "You're the girl." It wasn't a question. Adanna stood slowly, meeting his gaze with quiet dignity even as her heart hammered. "I'm Adanna Okafor. And yes, I imagine I'm the girl you've heard about. You have some nerve, thinking you can attach yourself to my son for his money and status." "Father." Joon-wook's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. He'd emerged from the examination room, his face carefully blank in that way Adanna had learned meant he was feeling too much. "My office." Now. In the office with the door closed, Dae-sung didn't waste time. "Have you lost your mind? An African girl? A cleaning woman? Do you have any idea what this will do to our family's reputation?" "She's not a cleaning woman. She's a medical student who lost her scholarship and has more integrity in her little finger than most of your business associates have in their entire bodies." Joon-wook's voice was ice. "And I don't care about your reputation." "You don't care?" Dae-sung's laugh was harsh. "This clinic, your education, your entire life was built on my name and my money. Everything you have exists because of what I've provided. And you think you can throw it away for some poverty-stricken foreigner?" "Yes." The single word hung in the air like a dropped bomb. "If that's what it takes, yes. I'll throw all of it away." Outside the office, Adanna pressed her hand against the door, listening, tears streaming silently down her face. This was exactly what she'd feared. She was destroying him, pulling apart his life, forcing him to choose between his family and her. What kind of love demanded that sacrifice? "You're not thinking clearly," Dae-sung said, his voice slightly softer now, almost pleading. "I've arranged a meeting with Director Yoon's daughter next week. She's educated, from a good family, suitable. This infatuation will pass, Joon-wook. It always does. It's not infatuation. I love her. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Daesung spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment. Then you're a fool, just like I was with your mother. And you'll suffer just like I did. I won't watch you destroy yourself. You have until the end of the week to end this relationship, or I'll cut you off completely. No more funding for the clinic, no family support, nothing. Choose wisely, son. When Daesung left, Joon-wook found Adanna in the filing room, her face wet with tears she'd tried to hide. You heard, he said. I heard. She turned to face him, and the anguish in her eyes nearly broke him. Joon-wook, you can't do this. You can't throw away your entire life for me. Watch me. No. Her voice was firm despite the tears. I won't let you. I won't be the reason you lose everything. I won't be another regret, another thing that breaks you like your mother's death broke your father. Adanna, I'm leaving. The words came out strangled but determined. I'll find another way to pay the debt. I'll leave Seoul, go back to Nigeria. You need to forget about me and live the life you're meant to live. The life I'm meant to live? Joon-wook crossed the room in 3 strides, taking her face in his hands. I've been living that life for 34 years, and I was miserable. Empty. Going through the motions. You woke me up, made me remember what it feels like to be human, to care about something more than reputation and success. His thumbs wiped away her tears. I don't want the life my father chose for me. I want the life I choose for myself. With you. Your father will disown you. Let him. You'll lose your clinic, your status, everything. I'll build new things. Better things. He pressed his forehead against hers. Adanna, I spent years believing love was weakness. But you've taught me that the real weakness is being too afraid to love at all. I'd rather have nothing with you than everything without you. She sobbed then, really sobbed, and he held her while she shook. This is crazy. We've only known each other 2 months. I know. And I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He pulled back to look at her. Stay. Please. Let me choose you. 3 days later, Joon-wook walked into his father's Gangnam office and laid his clinic keys on the desk. I'm walking away. From the clinic, from the family money, from all of it. Adanna and I are opening a small practice in Itaewon, serving the community there. Immigrants, working families, people who actually need medical care they can afford. Daesung stared at the keys like they were a foreign object. You're serious. Completely. For a long moment, his father said nothing. Then, quietly, you really love her. More than I knew I could love anyone. Daesung stood, walked to the window overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. Your mother, he said finally, was the best thing that ever happened to me. And losing her was the worst. I tried to protect you from that pain by teaching you not to love. But I see now I only taught you not to live. He turned back to Joon-wook. I can't give you my blessing. Not yet. But I won't stand in your way. 6 months later, Adanna walked across the stage at Seoul National University to receive her degree in economics, the debt to Joon-wook finally paid in full. In the audience, Joon-wook sat beside his father, who had shown up unannounced that morning. She's remarkable, Daesung said quietly, watching Adanna accept her diploma with a radiant smile. She is. And you're happy. I can see it in your face. You actually smile now. Joon-wook looked at his father, surprised. I am happy. Daesung nodded slowly. Your mother would have liked her. She always did have a talent for seeing what really mattered. He paused, then added, bring her to dinner next week. It's time I got to know the woman who gave me my son back. That night, as snow began to fall over Seoul once again, Joon-wook and Adanna walked hand in hand through the same Itaewon streets where they'd first met. They passed the alley where she'd collapsed, where everything had begun. Do you ever regret it? Adanna asked. Everything you gave up? Joon-wook stopped, turned her to face him, snowflakes catching in her hair. I gave up nothing that mattered. And I gained everything I didn't know I needed. He kissed her softly. You saved my life that night just as much as I saved yours. She laughed, the sound like music in the winter air. By fainting in the snow? That was my master plan all along. It worked. He pulled her close, both of them laughing now. Best complication of my life. Above them, snow continued to fall on Seoul, soft and relentless, covering everything in white. But this time, the cold didn't feel harsh. This time, it felt like transformation. Like new beginnings. Like love that had thawed even the most frozen heart, proving that sometimes the best prescriptions can't be written on a pad, and the most valuable things in life can't be measured in one or status or family approval. Sometimes, the cure for an empty life is simply having the courage to let someone in. And in the warmth of their embrace, two people who'd both been lost in different ways finally found themselves home.